Hello and good afternoon. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Guess what? We're back again. The panel, Maestro, our US correspondent, Dani G, Fight Fan TV, Basedakid. You know what I like about Base? He always looks like he wants to be here. I just, he does
Forgive
want to
him.
be here, but
He's
he
not
just doesn't
well.
express that happiness. But welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining in again. There's so much to discuss. Let me just say a quick hello to Philip Answer and Skyliner. Thank you for joining us. There's lots to discuss. There's so much to discuss, but I think it's only right to go back because I was so desperate to get us together last week because of Artur Beterbiev. It's only right that we go back, and I'm going to hand it over to Maestro to just talk us through his experience at watching the Artur Beterbiev versus Callum Smith bout.
Well, I did my best October, and thank you for inviting me, of course, to this great show concept that you created.
Oh,
Thank you, Danny and Base, for being here as well. Um, you guys will know that I'm a huge fan of Arthur Beterbiev. I'm a huge fan of Mark Ramsey, of the entire team they have set up over there. I've actually said that I think Beterbiev has the best team in boxing because not only does he do the bulk of his training with Mark, and also, of course, with Iceman John Scully and the entire setup there in Montreal. But he also trains for various times of the year in Russia too, with guys with tremendous pedigrees over there in Olympic boxing and physical training and in everything that you can think of an elite athlete of his caliber would need. So I've seen him fight live a few times. I was at the Beterbiev versus Smith fight where he absolutely obliterated Joe Smith Jr. at the theater in Madison Square Garden. And despite what a lot of people think, and I don't know why they think this because we see it in front of our very own eyes, he doesn't just press forward and kind of go into like some kind of guerrilla mode on people and just try to like knock them out, kind of like Deontay Wilder does when he used to get people hurt. There's a lot of boxing IQ in what he does, and he's at least arguably even more effective working as a counterpuncher, circling his opponents, fighting off the back foot, walking his opponents into shots, as he did to Joe Smith and as he did in Montreal as well, because he shifts his attacks against Joe Smith Jr. Sorry, not Montreal, Quebec City, against not Joe Smith this time, but Callum Smith. So I traveled up there from New York. It was a snowy weekend. I was complaining about how bitter cold it was. Later on, New York City got that cold blast, which is another story. But me and 10,000 plus other people braved the cold, braved blizzard-like conditions to go to the Videotron Center and witness yet another complete total destruction of another world-class fighter by Artur Beterbiev, who's now 20-0, 20 KOs. About half of those wins have taken place at the world title level in championship fights. He's one of the best fighters out there. He continues to test himself, and I was very impressed by what I saw. I don't care if you give Smith 0 rounds, 1 round, or 2 rounds. There was no moment in that fight where it didn't look like, to me at least, Artur Beterbiev wouldn't be victorious. So moving on from this, the next step up is apparently supposed to be in Saudi Arabia. We can thank our man Turkey Al Sheikh, who I'm sure we'll talk about later on, because he's proposed something that I think your viewers will find very interesting, and my viewers as well, which is a 5v5 Matchroom versus Queensbury card, which I think would really shake things up in boxing. But the next up should be Dmitry Bivol, another fighter, another elite fighter, another pound for pound great fighter, another Russian, who he will hopefully face on Saudi soil, because as you well know, one of the reasons for the fact that we haven't seen that fight yet has been the fact that, you know, there's been a ban on Russian fighters fighting for WBC titles. So apparently that's been done away with. and we can now move on, and we get to see Arthur Beterbiev versus none other than Dmitry Bivol, which I think is a tremendous fight, and a fight that I think a lot of fight fans have been waiting for. Yet another undisputed fight.
Dani, I'm going to go to you about that because there was some criticism for Artur Beterbiev, and I know that you tweeted, X'd about it, where it was talking about Artur Beterbiev's performance, getting better, stronger over time. But I know that you tweeted something about that, which is kind of like negated that comment. Do you want to talk to us a bit about that and why you said it? Because it seems as if, I don't know, can we just not accept that he's a really good fighter?
Yeah, it's well, I think people was accepting he was a very good fighter until, he beat some people's city man or a guy they really was banking on to win the fight. But I don't know how you can bank on a man to win the fight who's been inactive for 17 months, and the past few years he's been very inactive. Even his brother Liam Smith said that inactivity didn't help. Even he said in an interview I saw on Boxing News that inactivities killed the past 3 years of his career. So you're thinking that a catch, counter, left hook, which everyone's seen him use time and time again, is not going to be studied and nullified. Something that Canelo was able to nullify and not get hit with. You think someone like Beterbiev was not going to be able to take that away. So you're thinking, oh, because he can't land a catch counter, all of a sudden he must be on some sort of stuff. Also, we've come into society and known that we can, admit that men in the 80s, the 60s, the 40s and the 20s had more testosterone and more masculine than men of today. When you're drinking soy milk and you can't beat your children, and the society is very, even the aftershaves men used back then, Old Spice, Brute, we're using very exotic, fruity aftershaves now. I'm not the man my dad was. I know my dad was very, as a dad, I can see he was very more, compared to me. I'm about it for modern day men, but when you're talking about back in the day people, they're a bit more, So also, you got to think about the diet he takes. Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm glad.
No, it's his face that I'm laughing at.
I'm enjoying.
Where is this conversation going?
I'm going to add in one more thing real quick, Dani. I mean, I'm sure you know it. We're 80s babies. I mean, back in the day, grown men would go out and exercise and play sports. Now grown men sit around, with certain things and also play a lot of video games. So I mean, let's talk facts.
Yeah. So are we saying that we really need to bring back this toxic masculinity that was normal?
Yes. Do you know why? Because you look at children's kneecaps now, they don't have no scars on their kneecaps. But you look at me, Base and Maestro's kneecaps, we've got scars on our kneecaps because we were outside dropping on the floor.
I've got burn marks on mine.
I don't know why you've got yours, but I'm saying when you fall off of bikes, you fall over, you bust your knee, you bust your elbows, you got scars and stuff.
Yeah.
But in use now, they're a bit moist. But anyway, I'm saying that the fact is also where he lives, he's eating a different diet. He's not out on Liverpool Strip partying, doing marching powder and 10 pints. This guy is taking different supplements like Turkisterone, Tonga Ali, all these different things. This is why even when you're talking about certain men who do all their bush medicines and stuff, they don't really get ill that much. But when you're out in the UK, in the Western world, you're eating fry-ups, egg and chips. You're not built the same. This guy, he goes to bed at 9 p.m. at night, wakes up at 6. I heard this guy talking about, oh yeah, well, I'm no going out with you and your brothers, Callum, that is a great night out. So you've kind of let the cat out of the bag. You're not living the same life as this man. So what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? And let's remember, it's not like he went in there and just bulldozed him and went boom, 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 boom. No, as Maestro said, the last time he actually seek and destroyed was actually only against Marcus Brown, and that's only because he had the cut where he was
told by the doctor that he had to.
Yeah, because he was worried he's going to get stopped. And at the time when the cut happened, Marcus Brown was probably a round up. It was about round 5, weren't it? So he had to kind of seek and destroy him. When he got in there with Joe Smith, everyone thought it was going to be a bang out. No, he walked him into the punch. How many times? Anthony Yard, Anti-Yard would hit him with a pot shot, would try and go in to load up on an attack. What did he do? Ball matador him, cuffed him, pinned him in a corner, and started letting off. So he was using counters there. Even the shot where he chopped it over and nearly broke Yard's back was a countering shot as Yard tried to throw. Even with, when you're talking about Callum Johnson was having a trade-off against the ropes. Yard swept him on his temple, and his legs just crumbled. Even with this fight, when Callum Smith was trying to come in, he was using that jab. I've shown the post. You must have seen it where he's hitting that wall thing. As he's done, chop, boom, got his leg. Even when the shot, which got him rocking, was a pull counter right hand, Mayweather S style. He walked straight into the punch, which rocked his legs. Even in the last sequence, when he stepped over to Callum's left to make sure that it takes any elevation. Also, he has more time to see that catch counter coming. So when he was doing those arm sort of punches, which are very heavy arm punches, Callum tried to throw one, missed it. The second time, Beterbiev caught it and chopped one down. So he landed his own catch counter off of the catch counter to make him spin 90 degrees.
We're getting this Dr. Umar energy straight off Danny G. Danny G, aka I've got to ask Base, because Base hasn't said nothing. Base is in here like the judge, like almost like judging us. Base, your thoughts? I've got to get your thoughts on it.
I mean, quite frankly, it should be illegal for me to have to follow that. That was some soliloquy. I mean, look, to be honest, both Danny and Maestro have said everything that I thought. I didn't give Callum a prayer's hope before the fight. And while the fight was playing out, every single thing that I thought just came to fruition. Again, as Danny said, if your most loaded weapon is a catch counter that you use in almost every single fight, well, what would make you think that someone who's probably a level above everyone you fought, barring Canelo, would not know that that's what you're going to try and throw and will not have a game plan for it? And the fact that, again, Canelo nullified the catch counter, well, Beterbiev, if not better, is at least on parallel standing in terms of skills and abilities as him. He's going to do the same thing. So unless you've got some other tricks in the arsenal, then ultimately it's just not going to work. And when you look at it, yeah, you might say that Yard had a bit more success in some spots, but the same with Yard. Like, you never once looked at that fight and said, oh yeah, Yard's got him, or this could be his moment. He just had some successes, but that's just because his skill sets is a little bit different. He's a bit more erratic than what Smith is, where Smith is a bit more textbook, upright, classic British European style. And also for someone like Smith, who's got the height and the reach advantage for the most part, he doesn't use them. He allows the pocket to be collapsed on numerous occasions. And the last thing you want is to have someone like Beterbiev on the inside or the mid-range for you exchanging with you. And then to top it all off, you say, okay, well then try and shoot from range. Well, he didn't do that, but every time he tried, he was actually getting out-jabbed. He was getting beat to the jab, getting beat to the punch on the outside with the guy with short arms. So he just had there was basically nothing for him to do apart from, take his beating and survive as long as he could. And quite clearly it was 7 rounds until Buddy decided that enough was enough. Yeah, that's pretty much as I expect it to be. He is a freak of nature. But again, he's a very clean, teetotal type guy. So those type of scenarios and, the type of performances that he's exhibiting at his, let's say, advanced age is not uncommon when you live the lifestyle. I mean, Bernard Hopkins is a classic example of what you can do when you live correctly. So, yeah, Floyd Mayweather as well.
Sorry, go on, Maestro.
No, there was a couple things I wanted to talk about real quick. I jotted them down here in my notes. I didn't want to mention the atypical finding stuff, personally. I didn't ask Eddie Hearn or Bob Arum or anybody about it when I was at the event, because quite honestly, I found the whole discussion to be not just ignorant, but embarrassing. I mean, we're talking about, as Danny said, a guy who emphasizes the fact that he gets a lot of sleep. You don't need to be an endocrinologist to know that sleep helps in testosterone production. I mean, your body produces testosterone when you're sleeping. I'm sure everybody here has experienced, well, not everybody, but three of us here have experienced a phenomenon called morning glory. You know, there's a reason for that. It has to do with sleep. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is the difference between an atypical finding and an adverse finding. Okay. An atypical finding means that, you know, it's a little atypical for something to be this high, but at the end of the day, that's not an adverse finding. An adverse finding is when something's in your body that shouldn't be there. Both things that were found to be in Better Beeb's body are things that are supposed to be there that the human body naturally produces. The other thing too is that VADA does carbon isotope testing, and for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a form of a PED testing that aids in the determination of whether it's something is synthetic or it's natural, right? If this was something that was synthetic, right? So carbon isotope testing, for instance, would be able to find if somebody had a pellet in their system that's producing the testosterone for them. So for you guys who remember Peterson, who fought Amir Khan, he had a pellet in his body that was a pea pellet that was producing testosterone for him because he had a doctor's note that said he didn't produce enough himself. Well, carbon isotope testing discovers that because they can discover that this is a synthetic form and not a natural form. So if there was anything unnatural, Avada would have discovered it. The reason it was atypical is that because for a man his age, he has a higher amount than somebody typical for his age. So it's atypical. But you only need to look at Better Beeb to understand that this is an atypical man regardless. Everything about him is atypical. Okay? His skills are atypical. His fitness is atypical. His power is atypical. He's atypical. So it would lend to reason that he'd have an atypical level of testosterone. I would have just assumed that regardless, just off of looking at him. The last thing I want to say as well is just in terms of the technique and in the terms of the training, and this will have a lot to do with it. He incorporates a lot of compound exercises into his training. Okay, compound exercises raise your testosterone level. Now, if you haven't been doing training for a really long time and then you start incorporating compound training into your routine again, your testosterone levels are going to elevate, right? But when I heard Smith say, oh, well, the guy's 38, and I'm talking about Liam Smith right now, because Callum, to his credit, really wasn't playing into much of this narrative. But he said, oh, well, I've never heard of a guy having higher testosterone in his 30s than he did in his 20s. Well, first of all, were you there with him getting his testosterone tested in his 70s? I mean, in his 20s? And the other thing, too, is that you could still have higher levels at a given moment in time in your 30s. Again, I provided the example of training than he did, let's say, when he was at rest in his 20s, right? Or so it's not just age. It's like these levels are things that fluctuate. They're not just things that stay the same or that rise or that decline in a linear fashion. The last thing I wanted to say technically about those short shots, he does a type of training that I'm actually going to try to incorporate into my own gym. What they do is they mount tires on the wall, right? And then he gets two heavy sledgehammers and just beats in the wall like that. And I mean, you can see that in terms of those short shots. So heavy and I mean, the guy, like I said, he's a beast. He's atypical. His team is atypical. All credit to the man.
Listen, I've got to shout out the chat. There's so many stuff in here. So good evening, good afternoon, good night, whatever it is. Thank you for joining us. There's loads of comments in the chat. Please feel free to interact with each other. Please subscribe to each of our channels. You've got Maestro's channel. You've got Fight Fan TV. You've got Basedakid Hardcore Casual. We'll be doing this regular. It's something that I think we should do because there's so much to talk about boxing. We're going to push on because with the drug stuff, I'll be honest with you, I don't understand it, so I avoid it. I'm not a scientist. It's not my area, but I do understand the atypical. But I did say, and I've said it on my own channel, that I think that we need to take certain things into consideration, and it's necessarily going to be person by person, because people will have a different chemical compound in their body based on lifestyle, training, etc., etc. I don't think we can just have a one size that fits all, and then if you're above that, it's classed as abnormal. It's got to be more of a tailor-made. Danny, what you saying?
Yeah, and last thing on that, when you look at how he fights, there's nothing where he's doing which is just like extraordinary. Like, oh, his work rate's like Jarrell Miller, where he's throwing 200 punches around. He's not. He circles the ring a lot. He takes little breathers. His a power punch is a power puncher at the end of the day. They say power's the last thing to leave. Fraser Clark went on Twitter and admitted that Beterbiev was punching him up, and he's a super heavyweight. He said he was punching him up in sparring and was punching up David Dolan. Cal Yafai and some of the other GB boys was attesting that, you know, they remember Beterbiev smacking them up. He's dropped the current unified world heavyweight world champion in Usyk. You saw that old man who I swear he's got to be 50 at least, Ishmael Barroso, punch out O'Hara Davis. So power's power at the end of it, no matter how old you are. And Bernard Hopkins was a world champion until he was 49 years old and lost to Kovalev. Then at 51, he's still beating Joe Smith Jr. until he got punched out the ring. But he's 51. He had to call himself the alien.
Yeah, we like it. We could go on this forever, but what I'm going to do is keep the Liverpool tone, because I know obviously we've spoke offline. I did a live watch along yesterday. Natasha Jonas versus Michaela Mayer, the IBF welterweight. Both of them went in for that. I am not a boxing judge, and I know that people are saying some of the punches were hit on the guard and stuff like that, but I had Mayer up only by a round, 2 rounds max, close fight, not a robbery in my opinion, but I just thought Mayer looked more active, and the punches that she was throwing was clearly getting through. But I know you guys have got a difference in opinion, so I'm going to go to base and then we'll rotate it round that way, because base is more analytical. So the stage is yours for this one, base.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those fights. At the end of the day, I've said anyone who thinks that Michaela Mayer won, I'm not going to argue with you, because it was one of those type of fights. That in any given day, you can see something a little bit different. And if anyone says that Jonas wins, then again, I'm not going to argue with you, but I'm also going to agree, because that's the way I saw it. A draw, again, fine. The only issue I have is if people say that this one was a robbery. Like, at the end of the day, as I said on my video, that we've seen robberies. Maxi Hughes and George Kambosos was a robbery. Emmanuel Rodriguez against Raymart Gaballo was a robbery. You know, even to a lesser extent, Teofimo Lopez and Sandor Martin was a robbery. Like, but this, and obviously the biggest one of all, is Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall. With this, it was just a very, very close fight. And as I've always said, and as I said on my video, I think a lot of people looked at the story of the fight, which is that ultimately Natasha was starting off well, but Michaela Mayer was basically snowballing her way into momentum from sort of like the early middle towards the end of the fight, and then almost it was like Natasha was fighting against the current. But in those moments, there were still rounds in there where Michaela Mayer was losing, even though she was getting that momentum and she was building it up. So for me, I had it 96-94 to Natasha Jonas, the same as the American judge, which also to me should, dispel any notions of quote unquote home cooking, or, oh, well, if it was in the States, she definitely would have won, because the American judge gave her the decision. But I scored it. I scored the first round to Jonas, the second and the third. I scored the fourth to Mayer. I scored the fifth to Jonas. I scored the sixth and the seventh to Mayer. Then I scored the eighth and the ninth to Jonas, and then the 10th to Mayer. That's how I had it set out. And I was watching it. I was watching it live, same as everyone else. You guys will see whenever I do my scorecards online, I don't look at anyone else's scorecards. I just have my list, my threads going down, so that I keep a firm track of it. I give my little reasons, my little couple lines as to why I think each person won the fight. And then right at the end, once I've given my total, that's when I'll look and see what other people have said. To see so much of the whole robbery stuff was wild to me.
Yeah, it
And
was.
I've got to assume for a lot of people, it was a bit of almost sour that maybe they were backing Michaela Mayer to win, and because she didn't win, they was like, oh well, how could she not? Look at what she done. But it was just one of those fights. Like it could have gone either way. It just so happened to go the way of the home fighter, but I don't even think it was home cooking because I had no investment in it, and I scored it. I scored it that way. Michaela Mayer, she walked forward. She was busy. She was aggressive. Um, but in those first few rounds, especially, she was walking into punches with very slow feet. She wasn't getting into range that well. She was being countered. She was being picked off, and Natasha Jonas was landing the more significant punches. She got better as the fight was going on, but yeah, there was punches that was where some was hitting the guard, some was being slipped, some were grazing. You don't count grazing shots. There was a lot of good body work from both, and Michaela had her best moments when she was attacking the body. But a lot of the time, it's like, well, if you give 4 body shots and then someone else lands a peach of a right hand up top, unfortunately, most of the time that right hand gets counted more than those 4 body shots. It just
All
is.
right.
That's just how it is. So again, if anyone, like I said, Red, if you think Mayo won, power to you. I don't disagree with you. Anyone else who thinks the other way, cool. If it's a draw, cool. But the whole robbery talk for me is just wild and sounds like sour grapes, in my opinion.
Danny?
Yeah, I have to agree with Base. Well, last night I was actually at work, so that's why I was on your watch along. So I was basically listening to you. Was basically your live was giving me the sort of story of the whole fight. And if you remember, I remember the way you was talking, the way everyone was talking in the chat was basically like Natasha Jonas won the first 3 rounds. I managed to watch it in the morning when I got in. So she did. And I remember because Michaela Mayer started coming into it and you was like, oh, she's starting to work her. And in the 5th round, you was like, yeah, she's probably started to pin Natasha on the ropes and Natasha's looking a bit tired. And then after that round, you was like, I remember I said, what's your scorecards, people? Because I was asking because I couldn't see it.
Right, okay.
Remember, and then they were saying, oh, I've got Natasha around. You're like, wow, you got her up. So it's 3-2 after 5. This is what the people in the chat are saying. So I'm following what they're saying, and this is me without seeing it. But then you said you had a Michaela up. I was thinking, but I remember the first 3 rounds. You're talking about Natasha's landing these big right hands and these big body shots. I was thinking maybe you're remembering the last 2 rounds over the first 3 rounds. Do you know what I mean? And that's what happens a lot when people are not scoring it round by round. It's all about what have you done for me lately, innit? You remember the bad 100%. Thing that. Yeah, I remember the bad thing that my ex-girlfriend did. I don't remember all the good times and, how she was, taking care of me. But I just remember she done me dirty there. So, yeah, so-and-so. And you start going like that. But, basically like that. So, yeah, so what it is. And then... so
she always has this disapproving look. You know what it is in here. It's not going to be... It's not going to be straight-laced in here. Do you know what I mean? No. Look at him. He's like... He has to be like... Come on, Base. You need someone to come around there and relax those shoulders for you. Look at him.
No, Base knows
that Frank Warren, that shoulder roll. Shout out to Big Frank.
Base knows I'm a bit mad. I've been mad from day dot. But yeah, so then she's so 6th and 7th was close. You're saying that Natasha was looking tired. Then you started saying, oh, it's a back and forth fight. This is a real dog fight around 8 and 9. So this is obviously where the rounds where Base gave Natasha Jonas, because when you're saying it's a dog fight, this means that Natasha's finally found this kind of second wind in herself. So then obviously the 10th round, Michaela won it. So that's the last thing in people's brains. So that's kind of how and then when I actually watched it, I was like, wow. So when you're actually watching it, the commentary of the way you're commentating, if you actually go back and listen to your commentary,
I've got Natasha.
Yeah, you've got the same scorecard as Base. And I got that without even watching it. I couldn't even see it. I'm at a desk.
And I am literally, what have you done for me lately? And I'm like probably the one that will score it or look at it to what's the last person doing the last 10 seconds of the fight. I know because it happened with Craig Richards versus Joshua Buatsi. Buatsi was very clever to make sure he was winning the last bit of the rounds. And remember, like I said, I'm not a judge. So when I look at it like that, it's just like, yeah, like you said, what have you done for me lately? But even saying that, Maya she was still the aggressor, the more of the aggressor in the fight.
But when you look at the punches, especially when you look at some of those highlights, you're seeing when she's got Natasha on the ropes and the crowd are going mad. She's blocking the hitting the glove so that you can't score. Going like that frantically, like doing the whole Katie Taylor move, doesn't work, because unless the judges are there to score punches like amateur boxing, it's like pro boxing. You actually got to still score the punches. If they're getting blocked, they're getting blocked, and that's why Michaela Mayo was making a point about that belt's a bit high. That belt, she wears his shorts and her belt up by her chest. Natasha had to obviously bring it down a bit for this fight, so some of Michaela's body shots was getting through in there. But in the story of the fight, when Natasha was under fire, she was using her defense, using the earmuffs and covering up. And Michaela hasn't really got power like that, so she couldn't even break through the guard with her punches.
Yeah.
So it was hard to block. So
I did say that without the power.
Yeah, and also what the problem is just because someone wins their rounds more emphatically, it's just because Michaela won her 4 rounds more emphatically, does not negate the fact if Natasha just nicks 6 rounds, because it's still 6 rounds.
All right, I'll take that. But Maestro, you got to jump in. But I'll take that.
I'm going to jump in, and I'm also going to big myself up a little bit. All right, because I'm bigging myself up.
Because you know what? Sorry, pause. I forgot to do this earlier, and I really do need to big up Maestro, because Maestro is what we do call the real master knowledge. Welcome. Sorry.
Another one here.
You're talking about bigging yourself up. Go on, sorry.
Yes. So
how dare I forget?
Look, I am obviously known by that, not just in the US, but most specifically in the UK, all right, where I earned that honorific. But here's the thing, people that know me, they know that I'm a USA boxing certified coach, top level in the amateur system. People know that I'm a licensed pro manager and a licensed pro trainer. Okay, but what some people don't know, and I'm just going to tell it to you guys right here, and you guys can look this up on the ABC website. It's there. I'm also an ABC at Association of Boxing Commissions referee and judge. Now, I didn't do that training because I actually wanted to be a referee or a judge at the pro level. I did the training because I want, from a tactical perspective, I want to know exactly what I need my fighters to do in order to win rounds and win fights. So that's why I took that training, right? And I took the referee training under none other than Steve Weisfeld. Again, you guys can look it up. It's online. The judge training under Steve Weisfeld. I did the referee training under Jay Nady. So those are the 2 people I was trained under. So what I'm going to say is this, and I took a couple notes. Number 1, anyone who uses the word robbery at this point, it's like I'm just really not even taking you seriously when you're talking about the result of a fight. Robbery is the most overused term in boxing, in my opinion. The word robbery, when it comes to a result, to me, applies to Lennox Lewis against Evander Holyfield the first time. Like, that's the standard. You've had worse robberies than that, all right? But that is a robbery. What happened yesterday is not a robbery. And whenever somebody says robbery, the first thing I ask them is, well, how did you score the fight? Oh, well, how did you score the fight? No. I asked you. You said it was a robbery. How did you score the fight? Because I scored the fight 1 round for Natasha Jonas, right? BoxingScene.com scored the fight 95-95. Now, you could argue that there was a swing round there. You give 1 round to Mayer. I'm not going to cry about that. I'm not going to cry robbery. But I had Natasha Jonas winning the fight. And what a lot of people that scream robbery don't do is look at 2 things. Number 1, you don't just automatically score a round for the person that's moving forward. Okay? Michaela Mayer was pressing forward, especially in those first 3 rounds. There's no denying that. But she wasn't pressing forward behind the jab. There wasn't much tactics there. She wasn't feinting. There wasn't a lot of head movement. And Natasha Jonas was hitting her to the head, but she was also hitting her to the body, which brings me to point number 2. A lot of people, they don't count body shots. Guess what? Body shots count in boxing, guys. All right? you win rounds by digging to the body, and you could really see Natasha Jonas turning over those body shots, laying in with the hips, with the legs, full power in those body shots. And you also saw her, she did get hit. And by the way, yeah, you get hit in boxing, and yeah, damage can occur in 1, 2, 3 rounds on somebody's face. That doesn't mean that they lost 10 rounds or 6 rounds of a fight. So she did get touched. I did think she lost the last 2 rounds, but we're not talking about 2 rounds of boxing. We're talking about a 10-round fight. And I had her winning 6 rounds to 4. Again, there's a swing round there or two. And I'll admit, there are ways that you can say that Michaela Mayer won a couple of those rounds. But even if she had won those 1 or 2 of those rounds, it would have ended up as a draw or her winning by 1 round. I'm sorry, that's not a robbery. I'm just sorry, it's not. And the other thing too is I like Michaela Mayer. I've met Michaela Mayer multiple times, but Michaela Mayer also does a lot of pundit work and commentating work for ESPN. So essentially, her friends are calling the fight. So that's got to be stated as well. I remember back in the day, Andre Ward would leave the commentator's booth because a fighter that he was close to was fighting, right? In this case, we have people calling the fight who are very close to Michaela Mayer. I go to all of the ESPN Top Rank fights. They're all there with each other. She does the international broadcast. They're all friends, and they're commentating on the fight. So, of course, when this is human nature. I'm not saying they're bad people. They're all great people. I like them all. But it's human nature. When a friend of yours is doing something, you're going to be more enthusiastic about it. You're probably going to give them credit. And I think a lot of that is what happened. And does she? I don't get Sky Sports here, but I'm sure she does a lot of stuff with Sky in the UK as well. Does she not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But in fairness, I'm a massive Natasha Jonas fan. I wanted Natasha Jonas to win. I've spoke to her, several times. And maybe, I don't know, looking back, probably I've tried to sit on the fence and try not to be too biased. So I might have been more picky with Tasha rather than just maybe, like Dani's quite rightly pointed out, I was scoring it exactly the same as Base. So that's, it's one of them, isn't it? But we can talk about that, rematch. Would I like to see? 100% yes. There's a debate around the 3-minute rounds as well. That's something that we could discuss. But Dani, hold on. Let me just shout out this super chat. Stevie Wonder was the second judge last night.
So that's the German judge they're talking about. No,
Okay.
I mean, look, one thing I specifically do, and I make sure, because obviously in the English language, right, we've got a lot of words, a lot of them that tend to mean the same thing, but most people seem to misrepresent and misunderstand certain things. I will always specifically say, if I want someone to win a fight, like, you'll know that I want them to win. But just because I've picked someone, I have no allegiance. It's like,
Yeah,
yes,
I hear that.
I know Natasha more than I know Michaela. Natasha is obviously blessed both my channel, Undefeated channel before and whatnot. So cool. Michaela's also done that, and she's cool peoples as well. But if I say, right, I think that Natasha's going to win, that doesn't mean that I'm willing it to happen. So when I also get people like online almost criticizing my scorecard, say, oh, well, you picked us, so of course you're going to give her the fight. Well, no, because there's been many times where I've picked someone, and then when the fight is held, even if they won, I was like, yeah, I don't think they won that, to be honest. Like, I picked, and okay, yeah, I might have got it right, but I'm not happy about it, because it's a prediction. It's not, I try not to put an emotional investment into it, and I feel like that's the easiest way to stay level-headed and neutral.
There's one last thing I want to say, which is that, and it plays into the robbery theories and narratives that are out there, and it has to do with these outlier scorecards, right? So you'll have one scorecard that's like kind of way away from the other ones, and like, look, you see that person had it, 7 rounds to 3, therefore it was a robbery. Well, what people got to understand is there's the reason that there are 3 judges at a fight is because each judge only has one line of vision for the fight. So they only see the fight from that one line of vision. They don't see the other angles. And not only that, they don't have instant replay, slow motion, multiple video angles at their disposal. They see one thing and one thing only. So I could be watching the whole fight. Let's say most of the fight takes place on one side of the ring with one person's back towards me and the other person facing me, but I can't really see them fully because the other boxer's back is blocking me. That's their vision for the whole fight, right? But that's why we have two other judges. So you can't just look at one person's scorecard and say, oh, you see, because of this, that was a robbery. No, it's one judge's scorecard.
What Sly Sentences has donated $5 and shout out to Maestro. I felt it was a close fight, but Maya separated herself in the second half. One judge gave Jonas the last round. On what planet?
Yeah, that one I don't necessarily I gave her the last round for sure. I have my scorecard here, but yeah, like I said, it was I had Natasha Jonas winning the fight by 1 round. I mean, it was a close fight.
Yeah. And also the 7-3 scorecard for Maya is a bit strange because I think we're all in agreement that Natasha won the first 3 rounds. So are we saying that Michaela Maya just went whoom 7 straight after that? Really? Let's keep it a buck today, people. Come on.
Yeah, we're not gonna pause. We're gonna shut off that because things like that, when there's close fights, it always creates a massive debate, and I get it, and it's good. It's good for the sport. Like I said, there's other things that we can touch on, but one of the things that's come up, it's all over X at the moment, and I've had people send me articles. Is there's a little bit of a scandal at the moment going around with Boxer. And their links to the shamed former cricket manager, the guy that was involved in the cricket fixing, who had a jail sentence, etc., etc. And now there's a further article that's come out today, and it's talking about 80 grand in envelopes, cash, getting paid to somebody that works with the said gentleman, and the cash payments have come from Boxer. Now, me looking at it on the surface, obviously there's been some kind of investigation going on, and it's been going on for a minute. It seems as if, I don't know, when you get a fallout, you're looking at something else and then something falls out from that, and the papers have run with that, and maybe there's other stuff going on with other stuff that we're not really aware of because maybe it's a different type of investigation. But your thoughts on that? I mean, fair enough, it's £80,000, it's cash. Is that necessarily a crime? I'm just throwing it out there.
What was the cash paid for, October?
Well, apparently this guy is a consultant. He's working with the likes of Joshua Buatsi. We know that Matchroom have taken Boxer to court in relation to, I think they're suing them for an amount of 7 million for allegedly in contract deals, taking Buatsi away from Matchroom. So that's a bit messy. But then Buatsi's advisor is this guy, this consultancy company, whatever it is, the one that got the Kell Brook Khan fight over the line, 80 grand. I don't know. Consultancy fees. I don't know. Is it something to be worried about? I mean, like I said, can't people pay people in cash? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
You can pay people in cash, but you do still have to declare that money to the tax man and the right people. If you're doing brown paper envelopes down the back of an alley or in a coffee shop under the table, that is going to be, you are going to be liable for investigation and in incriminating behavior and conduct. 80 grand is a lot of money, obviously not in boxing terms. It depends how many fighters this guy represents. I know Ben said that this guy represents a number of his fighters, and he will do business with him in the future if he still represents these fighters who he has under contract. So it'll be interesting to see what exact involvement this guy has, what he's been doing, why this money was handed over in cash, if it was in cash. I heard it was in cash in an envelope, brown paper bag. You know, boxing, we're always talking about that brown envelope and stuff like that, and it's quite a nefarious. It's said in a nefarious tone, you know. So that it is a bit shady. But he says that this guy, he's not the first promoter to work with this guy, and he's not the last promoter to work with this guy. So it'll be interesting if it does get sticky. Will he name some other names who've worked with this guy? Will people get thrown under the bus? Will people be, you know, the 16-wheeler? So yeah, how deep does the rabbit hole go with this guy? Obviously, we know he's involved in cricket. He's involved in boxing. Is he involved in any other sports? Do we know? I don't really know too much about this guy.
Well, I only know what I've read on Wikipedia, which is that he was arrested on submission, and we're talking about Maser Majid, right?
Yep.
Arrested on suspicion of match fixing, but it doesn't actually say that he was ever convicted of anything or served time for anything. And you know,
He was.
was he? I'd have to look into that, but I'll tell you who was convicted of something and served time for something. Victor Conte. Victor Conte promotes or at least sponsors a number of fighters who wear his T-shirts and who are paid money for endorsing his snack nutritional products. You know, boxing is a sport where the entry into the sport isn't like the entry into teaching, which, you know, I had to do fingerprinting and, you know, prove that I'm not a criminal, and I had to do all kind of, you know, exams and get degrees and certificates and licenses to be a teacher. I didn't have to do much of that to get into boxing. Okay, boxing is full of people that are ex-cons, people that are killers. I mean, Don King served time for killing a man. Might have actually been 2 people he killed. I know he at least killed 1. 2, right? I thought it was 2. I just didn't want to say something that I wasn't 1000% or 100% certain of. But yeah, 2 people. So in the grand scheme of things, I mean, there are literally people involved in boxing right now that are accused of doing things much worse than what this guy was accused of doing. And I don't even know if he served time for doing it. And I don't know if there's any actual illegal behavior. I mean, and let's not forget about the boxers. I mean, remember a guy by the name of Adonis Stevenson not too long ago?
Yep.
I mean, he's literally served time for
Wasn't he a pimp?
Pimping and essentially forcibly confining young women and forcing them to have sex. I mean, so I mean,
sorry, like, yeah, sorry to interrupt. So then, why is the focus?
Yeah.
What is bringing the focus? Like you said, you've just given a plethora of names, a wide variety of examples where you can link, say, for example, criminality, murder, this, that, to boxing. So why then, which it seems as if there's been an ongoing long-term investigation, that the focus is on Boxer? Now, I'm going to throw that back to Base, because Base is sitting there in the corner quiet, but why is it that Boxer's been highlighted? Or what do you think? Nobody knows, but...
To be honest, I couldn't tell you. I know a bit. I've seen a little bits and pieces of it, but I don't know enough about the case. The only thing I can really echo is ultimately, as Danny said, okay, if you're giving, you know, brown envelopes, well, number one, you've got to declare that you've given that cash, and then the other person's got to declare that they've received it. If that's not happening, then you're looking at it more, even outside of the corrupt perspective. You've got the government that's now after you, wanting to know where this cash has come from or why you haven't declared it. Like, because ultimately, if it's legal tender, it should be declared. Obviously, there's a lot of, you know, general standard people that might get a little 150 pound here. They're not going to do that. It's understandable. But when you've got a large amount of cash like that you don't really just get to sweep that under the table. And with, you know, and what were the services for? What were the payments for? Until I know that, I can't really have more of an opinion. All I know is that ultimately it doesn't look good, and it paints Boxer in a bad light. I'm supposing maybe because again, you had obviously Eddie saying that he had Lawrence Okoli that was tapped up by Boxer, which they settled out of court. Then you've got Joshua Bawatsi. Then there's other guys from the stable that kind of jumped over there. Did he have involvement in those? Was he the catalyst for getting those people to basically break their contracts or to make things difficult? I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe the £7.7 million lawsuit for Bawatsi might lead into that as well, because I know that from what I heard, Bawatsi was managed by that management consultancy company at some point, and that might have been a catalyst for him to move away from 258 management. I don't know anything more than that, but yeah, until someone can give me answers as to why these things took place, then it just looks a bit dodgy.
Dani?
Yeah, it's just he might be looking at tax evasion affairs, but I know also word on the canvas is that Eddie Hearn is looking to sue him for 7.7 million also, due to taking fighters that was supposedly still in contracts, namely so Joshua Bawatsi is the key name that's been thrown around. I don't know if Lawrence Okoli was one of them as well, because I know there was a bit of a kerfuffle there. But so that'll be interesting as well. It seems Boxer is under the cosh right now, and yeah, it might be a rocky, tough time to come. I know the show last night, the undercard wasn't the greatest. He shows, even the Boatsi Danazi show, good main event, but there's no real steam getting behind these cards. Do you know what I mean? Frank Warren he's just rolling, and we know Eddie, even if his cards ain't the best, like the Next Gen show, it's not the greatest, but he knows how to sell it. And Frank Smith's learning as well. He's good reeling off, so he's starting to come into his own as well. So they're able to promote even their, so as they say, meaty cards. Whereas Ben, he's not getting on the camera, he's not speaking, he's not all up in the videos dancing, as Suge Knight famously said. Which so it's yeah, so it needs to. Yeah, the promotions is very. We've got the Magnificent Seven that's coming up. We've got the Fury Usyk. We've got His Excellency announcing. Ben is getting left in the dust, and unfortunately, if he's not careful, Sky Sports might start pulling a Showtime PBC on them and get rid of them and try and get someone else up in the joint. Because it's not serving a good purpose. They're not getting value they're not getting good returns.
He's supposed to be a promoter. The promoter's job is to promote. Come one, come all. This is what's happening on XYZ date. I'll be honest, I could watch an hour straight of Bob Arum. I see Ben Shalom, I'd switch the channel. Like, he's not saying anything interesting. Or what, do you watch a full 10 minutes? If a Ben Shalom interview comes on one of these channels we're all subscribed to, and it's 10 minutes long, how many of those 10 minutes do you actually watch Ben Shalom? October Red, the floor is yours. Because for me, it's about a minute, and then I'm switching.
Well, to be fair, when he was doing interviews, because he doesn't anymore, I would watch them because it's good to get like the forecast. I understand that, maybe he's not the all singing and all dancing, but sometimes in these 10 minutes, there's little hidden gems that you may find useful, whether he's tripping over his own tongue, which sometimes he has done. But yeah, I will watch the interviews, but he's not doing them anymore. I think he did a piece with TalkSport and then a recent article. It seems like the Times are literally going for his neck. They have quoted what he said in the TalkSport, which is what Dani said about, I will work with, everybody works with him. Why are you pointing the finger at me? He works with other promoters. It's almost like he will take everyone. He's not going on his own. If his ship's sinking, you're coming with him.
Mm. Well, I just don't find the guy very informative or very entertaining. And at the end of the day, you just said it yourself, he's not even really out there. That's your job as a promoter, to be out there. He's not a manager. He's a promoter.
Tough call. We could, I mean, like I said, we could, that's another, it's a deep dive with that. But what is obvious is that whoever has been looking at this has been looking at it for a while, because all of these articles that are coming out are of stuff that has happened in the past, i.e., the 80 grand being passed over in July, this, that, the other. So it's obvious there's a period of time when the focus has been on them for whatever reason. Who knows? Obviously, the proof's always in the pudding, isn't it? But we're gonna move back over and probably finish up talking about the Saudi stuff. We're talking about Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren working together, sitting down, doing face-offs, sitting down saying why I didn't like you, why you didn't like me, and even to the fact that they're going out for Christmas lunches together, which is, to me, unheard of. So I don't know. Whoever wants to take the running start with that one, have the floor.
Well, yeah, I'll go. Yeah, it's unbelievable, really. I like the way they put it on TNT Sports. Frank's always got, he's getting them exclusives and all that stuff on his channel. But it was good to see, because I remember there was many interviews when Eddie said that he's never met Frank in his entire life. Like, he'd never actually met him. He said he knows that they went to the same, because he was asking, "Oh, Frank, where does he get his suits from?" And then Frank was come rebuttal, "I get the same suits from this exact same shop as you." And he named the shop. He goes, "Obviously, I'm an older gentleman, so I'm not going to be wearing, your young stuff." So, so they've gone to the same suit shops, but they never actually met each other. Obviously, Barry Hearn is Frank Warren's era, so Barry and Frank was like, they knew each other, but Eddie never met him. So they always had this perception of each other without actually meeting each other. But once they've actually got together, it's kind of like, the streets, nowadays.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, it's like, for instance, a lot of guys that I didn't get along with back in the day, I'm from Lewisham Borough, Basel is the same. But we didn't, we had our qualms with guys from Woolwich, which is the Greenwich Borough, Peckham, Southwark Borough, Brixton a bit, Lambeth. But now we're all older and we're all on social media talking to each other about back in the days. We're all having laughs with each other like, "Oh, do you remember this?" And you realize we all used to listen to the same thing. Like, we all used to watch Sting clashes on our VCR tapes. We all used to go Trocadero. We all used to do this. And you realize, wow, we've got so many things in common. Imagine if we all came together and we went on like little trips together. It would have been so much fun rather than us warring with each other. It would have been actually a much more fun childhood than putting ourselves in danger over absolute nonsense when we're thinking that these people are just so weird and they're so different and they're not like us, so they can't come over here, and vice versa, when we're actually living the same lives. Our parents would have behaved very similar. So it's like what Eddie and Frank was like. You've got a narrative, and you don't. Once you've come together, you realize, wow, I actually like this guy. This guy's actually very cool. Frank goes, "Oh wow, I didn't know he actually knew about the sport of boxing. The way when I've actually finally talked to him, I thought he was just some car salesman, fast car Eddie, who goes on StubHub all the minute, and this guy actually knows his boxing." And Eddie Hearn was saying about Frank, I forgot what he said, but he said something that he
Is it Daniel Dubois scenario?
Yeah, that was it, about how much of a good motivator he is, and how he got Daniel's dad
go to the corner.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And how experienced he is. So once you actually, sit down and actually, as he said, you pulled my cracker. And, Frank loves, a cracking show.
That's cracker.
Yeah, he loves a cracking show. You know what I mean? He's always talking about the cracking show. So, it was good to see. It's actually very refreshing. And it's a good, do you know what? It's going to be a great documentary and story in years to come, how this all pieced together. So, yeah, I love it. And more power to him, because they're, do you know what? It's better for the, Frank's always talking about, I do this for fans. I'm trying to give value for money, not StubHub and all that stuff. I want it for and this is actually great for the fans. We're all loving this. Like, some people go, oh, I've seen some people in the comments, "Oh, what's all this bromance, some smushy stuff?" Well, you're getting the fights you want. So what are you complaining about? Like,
I agree. And we're getting it, Danny, because of His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh,
the puppet master,
who has, proposed something that I think is brilliant, which is a Matchroom versus Queensberry card. And I say I think that's brilliant because for the last few years, something interesting that I've observed is that people are aligned with promotional outfits almost the way people are aligned with their favorite football club
Preach.
or NFL or NBA team. It's like,
Preach.
so imagine a world in which Everton and Liverpool both exist, but they never play each other, or Arsenal and Tottenham both exist and they never play each other, or Fulham and Chelsea both exist and they never play each other. I could go on and on and on. Well, you know what? That world is what existed for a really long time in boxing. And Turkey Al Sheikh has been the person to say, you know what? No, we need the Gunners to play Tottenham. We need Man City to play Manchester United. And at the end of the day, like my man Danny said, what we all know is that the fan base all loves boxing. Like that's what we all love the most. For whatever reason, at some point, people have decided, you know what, I rock more with Frank, or you know what, I rock more with Eddie, or you know what, I like BT Sport now, TNT Sport more than I like Sky and now DAZN. Well, Turkey has figured out a way to mesh these two things, to bring them together. And you think about the matchups, Fury versus Joshua, right? Adelaide potentially against Johnny Fisher. I would watch that. You know what I mean? You go down the list, whether it's the top tier or the guys coming up, and the matchups are intriguing. Anthony Yard versus Callum Smith, right? We could go on and on and on. Even on the female side, there's a couple potential fights that you could make. So I think the whole thing is quite interesting, honestly.
Base.
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately, it's gonna garner more attention because again, if you've got a team that are like pro Matchroom, they're gonna do what they can to kind of shit on the Queensbury cards from time to time, or they're maybe not going to be invested, especially if the two of them are coming together during one night, and vice versa. If they're pro Queensbury, then you're not going to care about Matchroom cards or Wasserman or what are the others. But now, if you've got a 5v5, you've got both sets there, so you know there's not going to be any cross contamination. There's not going to be two different cards, and you've got to decide which one to watch live and which one to watch on demand. Everyone's going to be tuning into the one, and then you've got your fans, the diehard Matchroom fans. Yeah, they're going to be going at the Queensbury guys. You're going to have the Queensbury guys going, but they're all going to be in the same place. Even if they're watching on separate platforms, they're all tuned into the same thing, and that can only help to go the sport. And then the only downside of it then becomes whoever loses, because that loss is going to stick, and that loss could make you potentially a bit bitter, because if you truly believe that you're the best out there and then you get beat, especially if you get beat comprehensively, like maybe you might not be as keen to want to do it again when Mr. Excellency Turkey Al Sheikh decides that, oh no, I want to do that again. Yeah, no, I want to go in a different direction this time, and maybe the money won't entice you into it. That's the only potential downside I can see. But in terms of an initial wave, yeah, it's great. There's so many different fights that can be made. The one thing I will say is I want to know what the rules are, and I guess who's in contention, because let's be real, like in terms of, if you're just looking in terms of a stable, Matchroom stable is like 4 times the size of Queensbury's, maybe even 5 times, and they've obviously got international superstars from everywhere. Yeah, Queensbury have got a couple themselves, but primarily Matchroom have got very, very big stable. So if they want to, I guess it's got to be based on, I guess they've got to just decide certain weights, and then maybe some people have to be discounted for being too far ahead or too far behind. I don't know how they're going to work it. That's the only thing. I mean, I've picked about 6 or 7 fights that I would like to see. But with regards to that, that's the only thing I want to know is like, is it almost going to be a thing where, maybe for 2 fights, Matchroom give you that their biggest heavy hitters, but then they put a couple prospects in the other ones because they don't really care about those, and then in those prospect ones you've got heavy hitters for Queensbury because Matchroom don't have a big depth in that pool. That's the only thing I'm more interested in.
I like it as well, and I'm more inclined to agree with what you say, because this could make the rivalry even more heightened, because I believe they're going to want to put their best fighters in, because ego is going to play a massive role here. And for the loser, you know, the stable that loses, I mean, it could be, you know, detrimental. Moving forward for the fans, it's brilliant. But whoever does lose on that 5v5, I think it'll be, I think it will create absolute chaos. But the man himself, and I do call it, yeah, it's His Excellency Turki Al Sheikh, but I call him the puppet master because he's the one that is pulling and moving and operating everybody. Everybody involved in boxing is on a string at the moment because guess what? He's moving, he's shaking, and he's getting things done. Guys, I don't know. We can end it there. We can link up again, but have you guys got anything to say? But I think I'm going to call it quits.
I'll say
evening.
one other thing about His Excellency, right? It's now extended into the U.S. now. I mean, I saw Bill Haney on with my brother Nestor from the Boxing Voice. They want to take Devin out there, right? And they want to fight with Devin against Tank Davis in Saudi. That would be a huge fight because the focus for up to now has mostly been on the UK market and UK fighters. I mean, if they get a fight like that over there too, now we're talking about the US side as well, which I think would be very, very interesting.
Dani, final words from yourself?
Yeah, I'll just say that also he's tapped into, you know, the Australian, the that Samoan type. What's that area called, base?
What, the
Based
Polynesian
Australia.
demographic?
Polynesian, that's it. So he's tapped into that, and also what I have found, which is good with the fans, regardless which side you're on promotionally, is that the fights, because they said in the comments, name us the fights you want. Everyone's kind of made nice, fair fights. I haven't been seeing people say, I want to see Anthony Joshua versus Solomon Dakers, and then Anthony Yard versus Jack Cullen. Like, you know, let's make it like we want to see real, you know, fair fights. So the fights people have been saying they want to see as matchups have been even Stevens fights, which is good to see.
Base, final one from yourself?
Yeah, look, long may it continue. Even if we only get the 5v5 like once or maybe twice, just having the link up, having whether the shows are in Saudi or whether this just bridges the gap for more cross promotional stuff moving forward outside of, you know, Riyadh season, away from Saudi Arabia. Now there's a better dialogue between obviously Eddie and Frank, and obviously Eddie and George are always kind of talking to each other. You know, okay, look, okay, we'll loan you this guy to fight your guy. We think he's gonna win, so we'll send him over there. In return, we want you to send this guy over to us. Now, it may not happen with the A-listers, but that's fine as long as you're making competitive matches where, you know, at worst they're 65-35 and not 90-10s. Then yeah, long may it continue, and at least the dialogue is open now, so there can be a bit more cross promotion. I'm all for it. Let's see it. Let's go.
And I think the moral of the story, what we've all learned here, is don't necessarily listen to your friends when they say that the up is the up, because you might actually get to know them and they're actually good people, and they might actually even turn out better than that friend that tried to stitch them up in the first place. And on that note, you know what we say, stay ready. Don't forget to subscribe to all the channels, Maestro, Dani, Basedakid, you know what it is. We'll be doing this again. Thank you all so much for your time. We really appreciate your company.